Well, I'm told that India cannot be captured in photographs. That makes my life very, very easy because then why bother? So, simply in this case, imagine architecturally spellbinding temples, fortresses that have tried to defend against a tidal wave of invaders, onto which you can still regally amble along those ramparts in a rather oversized vehicle. A country that is constitutionally secular, welcoming all religions, and the Portuguese influence of Catholicism is being shown here in the coastal state of Goa. So in preparing for this presentation, the thought did occur to me, how does one go about capturing a country that encompasses so much, a civilization that is over 4,000 years old? Holy cow, indeed. Well, the fundamental philosophy of Hinduism, which is the majority religion of India, is the concept of neti neti, which means not this, not this. In a profound sense, it is saying that one can only capture the infinity of forms through negation, that not this, not this, that you're not limiting yourself to any one definition. So what neti is a combination of two words, na iti. Iti alludes to everything, superabundance. So neti implies a thing that cannot be reduced to a form. Thereby, it's an affirmation of superabundance, that the cup spilleth over. Everything is welcomed, everything is accepted. That idea of abundance is India. A very, very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for sharing your time with us. The Nourishment Project is about joyous curiosity and being part of something much larger than ourselves. Here are some of the references that inform this presentation. India is a secular country of almost 1 billion people, and her associated primary religion is Hinduism. So Hinduism's sacred hymns, the philosophies, are contained within the Vedas, which is why the Hindus are called a Vedic religion. So these hymns were originally an oral tradition, and they were composed around 2000 BCE, BCE being before current era. And they're actually meant to be chanted generation upon generation and inheritance. At some point later, they were written down as scriptures in Sanskrit, a very old Indian language. And there were four main texts of the Vedas. The Rig Veda is one of the oldest. One of the texts of the Rig Veda is very, very pertinent to our narrative. So that part of the Rig Veda is the Dasa Rajna Yuddham. You don't have to pronounce the word. Dasa means 10. Raja means kingdom. Yuddham means war. So effectively, it is saying 10 kingdom war. It gives you an idea what this little shloka or shruti is about, sutram is about. The land known as India was comprised of tribes along areas which also now includes what we call the Gangetic Plains. The tribe that won, the Bharata tribe, defeated the remaining 10 tribes and formed what we would now call an empire. And they called that empire Bharat, after that tribe Bharata. And that is what India is referred to in her own national anthem. Indians in India don't call India India, we call it Bharat. So the Indian's constitution literally says, the India that is Bharat. So the Bharat tribe came from an area now known as Haryana, which is near northern day New Delhi, which is the capital of India. The Rig Veda goes on to sing that after winning, instead of imposing their beliefs on the others that they had defeated, the Bharata tribe asked the defeated tribes to send their wisest representatives and that all their ideas would be compiled. I'm going to point now, it says here, I'm going to point here, bring us all treasures as thou art. The treasure they're referring to are not spoils of war. The treasure they're referring to is knowledge. So the Vedas are the compilation of all beliefs even those of the defeated. The Vedas are the template upon which Hinduism, the Indic civilization, has been based. Not imposing one's idea, but it is about assimilation. So they gathered by this mythical river. It's actually not mythical. It's a dry bed now. There was a river called Saraswati, which is the name of the goddess of learning. So you can see how this is working. They gathered by the river because most civilizations form by river. Water is the source of life. There was a massive fire. They sat around the fire and compiled disparate learning to form a cogent belief of that new empire. And even today, all Hindu religious ceremonies are held around the sacred sacrificial fire, which is known as Homa or Havan. So the philosophy, it's very important to point out that we now known as the Vedas had already existed for centuries before they were compiled. So what they had done is that they had assimilated existing religious beliefs. I found this to be fascinating. Religion as a working document, that which they updated. I wish we had the courage to do so now, to let go of arcane beliefs that are no longer applicable. The prejudices, the misogyny that is often found in different religions. Why don't we just update them, just as the ancients had done? Look, I'm going to point now. It says in the blue, the ancient sages is adorable too by the new ones. New sages, new wisdom, incorporating the selected wisdom of the old. It is an assimilation of a myriad ideas. India is a plurality. It is this embracing of ideas, the embracing of the ever greater, iti, 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 that captures India. It is a definition of beyond. In religious beliefs, the thousands of gods that exist in India, hundreds of traditions, multiple languages, and these are full languages, not dialects. And it is saying by that belief, neti, neti, you cannot capture me. It is this plurality of cultures, belief systems that cements the Indian constitution. And the document says that India, that is Bharat, the current nation, was designed to be a modern manifestation of that all-embracing civilization. And that republic will remain so. I hope the title makes more sense to you now. It is an idea across centuries. And that idea continues. For example, the Madurai temple in South India, the version you see now, if you go there, is from about a few hundred years ago. It is known as the Meenakshi temple. So the original temple was plundered and demolished about a few hundred years ago in one of the many Muslim invasions, and it was rebuilt by the subsequent Hindu rulers. It is as colorful outside as it is inside. And in this almost 1,000-pillared hall, they say it's 1,000, it's a little less than that, 990 something, let's just call it 1,000. The ceiling colors are matched by the clothing of the devotees. India is, at the very least, a colorful country. The Meenakshi temple is a very large complex, and the structures you see here are what is called the gopurams, the gates into the temple complex. The actual temple is the smallest building inside. So it is a Hindu temple to the god Shiva. What had happened was when these Hindu rulers came and took over the tribal areas of where Meenakshi temple is now in Madurai, there was already an existing tribal religion. What it did, once again, not imposing assimilation, they very conveniently married the local pagan, I wouldn't say pagan, the local regional goddess, Meenakshi. And so it co-opted into the religion of Hinduism. And if you look hardly enough, so what they do is they go in, they don't fight, they don't convert you, they simply bring you into the fold and you become part of the larger existing belief system, in this case, Hinduism. So in the Meenakshi temple in southern India, in Madurai, if you go and you look, there is in that complex, a small lake with what looks like a statue of what that original Meenakshi looked like. So they don't delete anything. It's never neti, neti, not this, not this. They include everything in iti, iti, iti. You will see parts of this no matter where you go in India. So what is the narrative for today going to be? who is the audience for this presentation? Because some of you have been to India multiple times. Some of you have never been to India. Who is the audience? Well, it will not be a review of the golden triangle that many tourists in India visit, Delhi, Agra, Rajasthan. And the Nourishment Project presentations are never made with any audience in mind. The presentations are welcoming to all, to whoever is curious, in the hope and the trust that there will be something in here that resonates with you, because it's really about life. I'm originally from India, and this is almost a love letter to India. My India Within. A poem, Unending Love, by the Nobel Prize winning poet from India, Rabindranath Tagore, is going to start our journey. The lyricism of his writings makes this almost a hymn. So here we go. I seem to have loved you in numberless forms, in numberless times, in life after life, in age after age, forever. My spellbound heart has made and remade the necklace of songs that you take as a gift, wear round your neck in your many, many forms. In life after life, in age after age, forever. Whenever I hear old chronicles of love, its age-old pain, its ancient tale of being part or together, as I stare on and on into the past, in the end you emerge, clad in the light of a pole star. You become an image of what is remembered forever. You and I have floated here on the stream that brings from the fount at the heart of time, love of one for another. We have played alongside millions of lovers, shared in their same shy sweetness of meeting, the same distressing tears of farewell. Old love, but in the shape that renew and renew forever. Today, it is heaped at your feet. It has found its end in you. The love of all man's days, both past and forever. Universal joy, universal sorrow, the memories of all love merging together. This one love of ours, and the song of every poet past and forever. That is what unending love is. And that is what I feel for India, what it has been, what it is, and what it will become. So though this will not be a treatise on Indian architecture, on Indian temples or stepwells, these stepwells are marvelous structures. They fill up with water. It's the dry season shown here now. And so as the water builds up, the women would walk down these steps and gather water. It's a beautifully set architecture. It is also worth noting that though we're not talking about architecture, that the sensual reliefs that adorn these temple structures inform the ever alive dance traditions of India. So these aren't just rabbit structures that they carved into the sides of the temple. Each region of India has its own dance traditions with its own bewitching costumes, musics, and stories. It is really iti, iti, iti includes all of this. There is no one definition India. This is also not going to delve into the rich storytelling heritage of that subcontinent, the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, or countless other stories that are found there, lengths of each of which eclipse that of Homer's Odyssey. They are massive storytelling written down. Music is also not the focus of this narrative, though it's worth pointing out that though the Western violin was adopted by India, the Western way of playing it was not. Carnatic violin, so Karnataka is down south in India, sounds completely different, and the complexity of the Indian raga go back centuries before the Western canons. You can YouTube all of this. And so this idea of a Western leader, which is setting poem to music, is much more developed in the Eastern offerings. It's again, iti, 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 includes it all. So it's beyond just setting music to poems. The music is set to food, it's set to color, it's set to flower, it's set to costumes, it's set to art, it's set to action. It's infinitely nuanced, outside the scope for today. And though India, I found this very interesting, was colonized by England, hijack, I love your country. English, for all its purpose, could not convince the Indians to embrace Western music. I mean, we do listen to Western classical music, but because I think India has her own deeply resonant musical foundations, they don't change it. Sitar is just an example. Myriads of instruments make up what would be the cultural orchestra of India. So the famed opulence of India in the form of jewelry is, unfortunately for some in the audience, not covered today either. Though the Indian love of adornment is undeniable, for example, here, what is being shown is what was commissioned by the Maharaja of I think his name was Nawanagar, which means new town. He had commissioned Cartier to create this singular piece. And the caskets of jewels from the Maharaja of Patiala had inspired Cartier in turn to design what is now known as the Tutti Frutti. It keeps changing. And let me point out, it is the men who's wearing this kind of jewelry. So just imagine what the women wore during the heydays. I'm probably one of the few Indian women who don't really care about wearing much jewelry. The wealth that is apparently pilfered from India concerns many in India now, not me. And this one, the Kohinoor diamond, which you can see down here, is one of the largest diamonds in the world, and it crowns that of the Queen of England. As far as I'm concerned, keep it. The jewelry that I'd like to share with you is something to me much more rare, more singular, because the ones who made it, the Nagas, which are in the eastern part of India from Nagaland, their lifestyles have permanently disappeared due to either religious conversions or colonizations. And the jewelry pieces that they made, to me, and in reality, are timeless and absolutely beautiful creation. That's what I miss, not these baubles of rubies and sapphires and diamonds and golds. Those are replaceable. What is lost in this jewel are customs and traditions that will not be coming back. So as far as India is concerned, today's presentation is not going to be about food either. And the Indian system known as Ayurveda treats, because it's not a treated, it's still going on, treats food as medicine. The Indian kitchen has long used these herbs and spices as medicine, ginger, turmeric, which are now being recognized as holistic medicine. For example, turmeric is used to treat inflation. So each of these spices that are put in there, I don't know what they use chili for, because I avoided like the plague. I can't even eat flaming Cheetos. I weep. I'm the one Indian who cannot handle hot spice. But the rest of the spices there really do have a purpose. Fun odd facts. In India, if you want to have dumplings, you need to ask for what's called momos. Don't call them dumplings. And this common street snack, actually, it's found almost throughout India. It has multiple names, regionally dependent. So it's either called pani puri, it's called golgappa, or where I come from in India, it's called fuchka. It's a little crispy fried thing. You make a hole, you stuff it with potatoes and this savory, I don't know, juice. It's an acquired taste, but once acquired, it's an addiction. Rice is a staple of India, and a favorite is the fragrant, aromatic rice dish called biryani. It's simmered in spice, and it's then they make it in these tandoor oven, clay ovens. They will seal it with the dough, and in the picture here, it's being shown the dough is being removed. And again, this rice dish is regional. In the Bengal region where I'm from, potatoes are added to biryani. In fact, to a Bengali, if you give them biryani without potatoes, we look down upon it. But truth be told, Bengalis just about look down upon everything. So we have an odd disease. So rice, meat, and potatoes in one meal, cooked in clarified butter. I'm done for the day. It's just perfect. Today's presentation is not going to be about costumes either. So do you kind of get the theme? Neti, 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 not this, not this, not this. What am I really going to be including? I do acknowledge that the sumptuousness of Indian textile deserves its own focus. And so it's almost good that I'm not just showing 3 slides about here, Indian textiles. But the reason I included this picture is to show that textiles, among other things, as does Indian architecture, reflects the beauty of nature. In fact, nature influences every aspect of India. Architecture shown here. And this is a gem that I want to share because it's often ignored. And if you plan to visit the country, consider visiting the northwestern regions, areas of Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh. These are all Himalayan areas. The further east you go, sorry, northeastern, not northwestern, go towards the east. These are the places where azaleas and rhododendrons, wherever you see them in the world, these are their effectively originating places. And life's blessing showers upon you through nature as she carpets the ground and invites you to walk on this place. Silk carpets don't hold a candle to this level of sensory luxury. I'm going to turn 50 next year. And where I want to go is this place in Sikkim. It's called Barsi. And you just walk through these rhododendron trails. Nothing compares, because the beauty of these regions just absolutely overwhelms one's senses. Just enjoy what is, to me, the magnificence. I mean, look at the simplicity of this, the weaving pattern, poorest of poor, but rich in beauty. And the rocks covered by lichens, they have their own quiet beauty. It's almost like the beauty of Celadon that you see in Chinese culture. When you're surrounded by opulence, sometimes it's the simple things that catch your eye. I always thought of Celadon like that. And this is in Meghalaya, the root bridges, just nature overwhelms in her bewitching beauty. So the area that I'm going to focus on is the state of West Bengal, which is in the eastern part of India. I was born in Kolkata, and I would love to share this area with you because most tourists aren't familiar with this city, which was once the capital of British India. It has probably deservedly earned the name Black Hole of the World, but there are gems in there. So stereotypically, Bengalis are lazy, like nothing better than to lounge around reading, cultivating the arts and the mind. All true. I like nothing better than to sit and read and do nothing else. It's completely true. So this is a room in my uncle's house. I spent countless hours there. The bookshelf there has introduced me to wonders such as O. Henry, Somerset Maugham. And I can't tell you how many times I've just breathed in these books, breathing in joy. So one of the many things you will find in old homes in India, such as mine, are these leather-bound books that are stamped with the owner's name. You see, the names are stamped. It is their version of what we call a book plate. So this book, and it's the book on Aini Akbari, and the books that he had in there were just weirdly lovely. I love them. And who wants to learn about tent building? Once you start reading them, you can't stop. So most of the books in old Calcutta, when you have these people, they have esoteric topics where the pages are just foxed, little holes in there because the moths are chewing through it. And these pages sometimes crackle when you open them. And I love it. It's like the sound of waiting to be opened. So that's the world I grew up in. That's the world I want to share with you. Bengal also identifies with the goddess Durga. So Durga, this is not like Lady Godiva. She is the goddess who comes on a lion. And she was effectively created to vanquish a demon called Ashur, when all the gods couldn't defeat him because he had been given a boon that no god could defeat him. So there's a caveat, a goddess could. He never thought a woman would beat him. And so she was created to fight him and defeat him. And she did that with a smile on her face, almost like this was child's play. That's the general story. And the story of this epic is effectively good versus evil, where the woman vanquishes the heights of evil. And again, it was orally given. The hymns are often performed, by the way, as a dance drama, akin to what the European traditional of opera is. But what makes it very nostalgic for most Bengalis, if you're in India, in Kolkata during September, end of September, October, it's Pujo, which the rest of India calls Puja. I always say Pujo, festival, religious festival season. It's actually the harvest festival. So all of this is really tied up to nature again. As is shown in this cartoon, these hymns are played, and these hymns are called Mohalaya. They are played 4:30 in the morning on a particular day. The day is selected depending on the lunar calendar, and they will play it on the radios. That's what's being depicted here. The family gets together to hear it. Most of the homes play it with their windows open, and through the radios, and I guess now the streaming devices, the hymns reverberate through the air, announcing the blessing that here she comes. Here comes Ma. The goddess Durga is known as Ma Durga. And the word Ma is for mother. It's almost like a sigh, isn't it? Ma. It's a friend of mine, Penelope, told me it's a sigh. It's almost like the sigh of love. And it's very pertinent because Ma is also used as a term of endearment in Bengal. I call my daughter's name is Kaya. I often call her Kaya Ma. That's when she knows she can ask me, and I'll probably say yes to whatever she asks for. I have to be careful. So it is this man, Birendra Kishore Bhadra, whose voice has been played for decades. He would be the Pavarotti of Indian Mohalaya. Most Bengalis, if they've grown up in India in the 70s, 80s, 90s, know him, and even now, and they get just rhapsodized nostalgically about him. So idols are made for her festival season. They'll make idols of Ma Durga in a place called Kumortuli in Calcutta. It is effectively a craftsman village. They make these idols, and all Indian idols are festooned with flowers. That is the offering. So in traditional Hindu India, because again, India is a secular country, Hindus had prior to the British or even after the British, they didn't really have a concept of a formal garden. They have potted plants, if anything now. Flower trees and flowering plants exists primarily to provide flower for worship. Flowers were associated, and for the most part, even in my mind, associated with religion. And one never spells the flower that is offered for worship. You give it, and once you are given it to the temple priest, once it's blessed, you get it back, you can then smell it. Before that, you do not offer in worship any flower that you have smelled, because you're taking the essence of the flower out. So again, here, the reason I included that is the plurality. This is what I mean, iti, iti, iti. The influences from everything. No one, even the ones that may have been defeated, even the ones that may have defeated us, our genesis, our origins are just murky, and it's lovely. You never know. So why deny anything? Look where Durga genesis comes from. Millions of Hindus worshipping a goddess whose genesis is almost assuredly from the areas of what we now call Mesopotamia, which is Iran and Persia. I wouldn't say Muslim areas because Islam didn't exist till 600, 7th century. And these areas from Mesopotamia, which is the goddess Ishtar, Inanna, is from about 2000 BCE or longer than that, 2300 BCE, BCE being before current era, about 4,000 years ago. So it is the goddess Ishtar, Inanna, that influenced or was the genesis of the story of Durga. And here again is the motif of Durga, the lion attacking the Ashur in the form of a bull, because her lion had attacked the Ashur, had changed shape, he morphed into shape, many shapes. When he got killed, he was in the shape of a bull. And look, that motif is prominent in Persepolis even today. Look where we come from. Who knows what has influenced our belief systems? So why put any beliefs down? Every fall in Kolkata, pavilions are created. So these are not permanent structures. These are created to celebrate Durga Puja, Mother Goddess Durga. At least 1 million people throng to see these temporary structures that house the Durga idols for 10 days. So this one is made of glass. It is effectively a massive art festival. It's completely religious, but each neighborhood builds its own pavilions. It is thrilling. They gather money from the neighborhoods, they get funds, and they go hog wild. It's fabulous. And here you see cars drive by, thousands of people. Actually, by the time it's done, 1 million people shows up. There might be 15,000 people standing in line at any one place coming to attend these things. And these lines throng all through the night for 10 days. So each neighborhood has its own structure. Every year it's different. Within each of them shows a different form of the goddess, Durga. You can make it as imaginative as you want, and that's what people come to see. And they do get imaginative globally. Here is one, what you might recognize. It's the Trevi Fountain. The Trevi Fountain was the influence for this pavilion. And so Poseidon is playing doorman to the Hindu deity inside. It's really fun. It's amazing what is done. And I'm just showing you 2 or 3. There are thousands every year. All these structures, this wooden structure. So this is the real permanent apartment complex. They made this for 10 days, within which houses a form of the Devi Durga. And she has children. She has the 4 primary children. Ganesh, most of you will recognize. The goddesses Saraswati and Lakshmi, the goddesses of wisdom and wealth. All of them worship. And Karthik, who is the pretty boy god, he has purposes too, but that is her family, and that is who is worshipped. You have to imagine the clothes, the din, the feeling of hope, the tradition that surrounds you during these 10 days. It's really, really lovely. I hope some of you plan to go there, but be overwhelmed by crowds. You'll think all of India landed up on your doorstep. It's as if all the entire ocean crashed upon one shore. That's how it feels, the sea of humanity that greets you when you're there. So some IWA members have watched Indian movies. That seemed like a good continuation for this story, because cinema, movies, pervades Indian life. Directors from the early 20th century, as shown here, V. Shantaram, made regional movies that have been praised even by Charlie Chaplin. Not all of them, some of them. Another little known fact is that Jewish families made a huge contribution to the Indian cinema. So traditional Hindu and Muslim families did not allow their women to join the film industry. And so Ruby Myers became Shulochana, which means beautiful eyes, almost like Meenakshi. And she had amazed audiences during her times. She had at one movie played 8 roles. I think the movie was called Wildcat of Bombay. These are silent films, so it didn't matter how well she spoke the language. And in those 8 roles, I researched, it was fascinating. She played everything from a gentleman from Hyderabad to a street urchin to a European blonde, the whole shebang. Had she been around today, she would have earned an Oscar. I would have seen her on TV on Sunday. She also played Radha, the lover of a Hindu god, Krishna. Imagine Radha being played by a Jewish woman. Everything was fine. The audiences loved it. Finding all this out, because I didn't know this aspect, I am so proud to learn that there has never been any documented cases of any aspect of anti-Semitism in India. That makes me super proud. That makes me actually very happy. And so Florence, or Farhat Ezekiel Nadira, the Jewish woman, became known as Nadira. And in the well-known film, Shri 420, she, as shown here, she's dauntlessly holding a cigarette in one hand and a whiskey glass in another. And that's not the end of it. Here she is again, riding into glory in the movie called, who came up with these titles? Savage Princess. You come and you get a story when you come here. So even in the 1940s, they ruled. And in the 40s, with the formation of Israel, many of the Baghdadi Jews of India went to Israel. And so that's why there's very few Jewish families or people left in India. But acting wasn't the only area where there were Jewish contributions. The Indian film industry also had, here's just one example, Joseph David Penker, who was a prolific playwright. He was a screenwriter, lyricist, director. And he wrote and directed in regional Indian languages. And these, again, are not dialects. These are full-blown languages, Gujarati, Hindi, Marathi, while he was fluent in Hebrew and English. And he lived in the cosmopolitan areas of Bombay, which is now Mumbai. And you have a huge Parsi community there. It was very, very cosmopolitan without losing either his Jewish or his Indian roots. It's really iti, 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 everything included. So the Indian movie industry today is rather well known the world over. The melodramas are lavishly produced, replete with songs and dances and romance. Actors must be prolific dancers. And this one, Hrithik Roshan, when he dances, is really poetry in motion. The actresses are equally prolific, and remakes of old hits are made, old Indian hits, but they're not always made well. The actress for this movie, which is called Umrao Jan, doesn't hold a candle to the original made with the actress known as Rekha. She's another thing entirely unto herself. So I don't know. Today I'm hoping, I don't know if she's here. I'm very lucky to be joined. We're lucky to be joined by a wonderful movie critic. She's based out of Chicago. Her name is Penelope Steiner. So if you're movie buffs, I encourage you to go to her website, pennyflix.com, because her reviews, as you can see, I'm going to point, she has Hollywood movie reviews, Bollywood movie reviews, foreign films. She reviews them all. She sees them all. She rattles off names of movies, and I'm just flabbergasted. She knows all of them. I go to her site often, pennyflix.com, because I don't really have much time to watch too many movies. So I go there to get an idea what movie, and she does Netflix movies, all of it. So if you're here, Penny, love you. It's so helpful to me. So movies are made throughout India, and Kolkata, which is my hometown again, was known for a filmmaker who was respected internationally. So he had early recognition at Cannes for his film Pother Panchali, which means Song of the Road. Song of the Road became part of a larger trilogy called Apu Shangshar. Apu is this boy here. He dies, and how his life goes on is what Apu's trilogy is all about. And the director is none other than Satyajit Ray. We call him Satyajit Ray. His baritone, you can look him up on YouTube, his tone, his command of the English language, his searing intellect leaves me speechless. And again, here is the plurality, the embrace of the other. Satyajit Ray was originally an advertisement man. He had once, his job had taken him to London, and he had chanced upon the Italian director Vittorio De Sica's movie Ladri di Bicicletta, which is The Bicycle Thief. And that is a moving story of a Roman laborer, as shown on the right, who lands in that ever elusive job only to have the critical instrument for his job, his bicycle, stolen. The movie is really about day-to-day world of countless citizens just struggling to survive during peacetime. And De Sica used non-actors in his films. Satyajit Ray was transformed by that movie. And when he returned, he decided to become a director. And he used De Sica's template of using non-actors to emote on stage and scream. He had the confidence to go and pivot and do something else. Ray is a different beast altogether. He composed his own music. And because he was from advertisement background, he did most of his stills, his storyboarding. He is prolific beyond belief. I cannot tell you what he's capable of. For example, in one of his most famous movies, and this movie, Jalsa Ghar, which means the music room, is reputedly one of the favorites of Jack Nicholson, that guy who did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Now, truth be told, I always thought he was weird till I read that he liked One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I thought, you cannot be all that bad. So now I like him. But anyway, Satyajit Ray composed his own score by playing one of the works of Sibelius, the Finnish composer Sibelius. He played that score backwards to make his score for that music, for the music for this movie, Jalsa Ghar. It's a stunningly shot movie. His other movie, Shatranj Ki Khilari, is a masterpiece, The Chess Players. And the story revolves on a very superficial, on the first layer, on the first nuance, is about two landowners who is wealthy enough never to work, who spend all their time playing chess. The movie details are flawless, and I can readily admit part of the big appeal to me for the movies are the shawls used in the movies. They are stunning. I'd be happy to own just one of them. And the movie has charming comical details. So this is one of the wives of the two landowners. And she laments in the movie that this is based in Lucknow, which is a part of India that has highly cultured aristocratic Islamic background. And the courtesan culture was very, very rich in India. And so in this movie, this actress, Shabana Azmi, she plays the wife of this character on the right. And you see her lamenting that she can handle her husband going to visit courtesans, which was the habit in old Lucknow. But what is she supposed to do when her rival is not a human being, but a chess set? And she's irate and angry. And the movie is just simply charming. But beyond the charm, the larger story was the game being played by the British Empire with the feudal Indian rulers over the chessboard that was India. And so Ray's artwork in the opening credits sets the tone. He very clearly depicts, while the names are being given, the complexity, the complicity, and the complexity of the Indians had a part of being ruled because they were complicit in enabling the British Empire to divide and conquer the subcontinent. The movie is fabulous. I love it. I don't really know how somebody who doesn't understand the language will see it, but the way it's shot, the way it's made, I absolutely can watch it over and over and over, if only just to see the shawls. Satyajit Ray he was respected because he's dead by his fellow directors and of international repute, including the renowned Akira Kurosawa. And one of the movies on a global cinema regarded by almost all critics to be flawless is Satyajit Ray's movie called Charulata. It is a very simple story of an intelligent housewife of a very rich aristocratic family in Bengal. She had a household filled with servants. She had no children of her own, and thereby she had nothing to do. She then falls in love with her brother-in-law, who has come to stay with them during his college days, in his college holidays. And the entire story plays out very quietly. There is no good or evil. There is no evil person in here. It is just being human and the complexity of being human and the intricacies of the human heart. It's a marvelously told, simple tale. I love the story, obviously, that's why I'm showing it to you. The story was based on a story written by, the movie was based on a story written by, again, the Nobel Prize winning poet, Rabindranath Tagore. It's reputedly a bit close to home for him, as he was said to have been very fond of his own sister-in-law, Kadambari Devi, who then had committed suicide when he, Rabindranath, got married. So there's a story back there. I don't really care. I don't need to lay an egg to enjoy an omelette. I don't want to know about people's personal life. I love his work, and that I apply that to almost everything that I see and do. So Rabindranath's work is worshipped in Bengal. Millions and millions hum and sing his songs daily, as do I when I'm driving, when I'm doing my laundry, doing my dishes, when I'm just moping about, thinking of something during my times of happiness and sadness. And these are thousands of songs, they get me through. And the reason I'm including Rabindranath is that he welcomed the larger world, and he readily credits his influence of the outside world on him, his influence upon him by the Persian writers, the Iranian writers, Rumi, Tabriz, Hafiz, even English poets like Robert Browning. He really is a poet of the world. To say that he's an Indian poet, that some Indians are bound to do, oh, look, he's Indian, he would shun that appendage in a heartbeat. Universal poet, universal writing. And he traveled worldwide, and his worldwide travel expanded his understanding of what it means to be human. Here in Japan, he had seen and was moved by this painting, Yoroboshi, which is considered as a Japanese treasure. And so it is multiple panels, the painting. I'm just showing one of the panels. And the panel that I'm showing depicts a blind man praying under a plum tree in full bloom. It's completely blooming as the sun is setting in the evening. And so the man is blind. So in his heart's eye, the blind beggar can see, as far as this painting is concerned, the blue of the mountains that he had seen as a child, because he wasn't born blind. So the imagery alludes to the emptiness of space that is necessary for the fulfillment of perception. You need to have space to see within the blindness. That is a central theme in one of the revered chants of Hinduism, which is an ode to the sun, the Gayatri Mantra, which has a similar line, Tamasho ma jyotir gamaya, which means from darkness to light. Effectively, it's saying from ignorance to enlightenment. So Rabindranath's classical Indian understanding responded to the Japanese scene of a blind man praying in the middle of emanating light. This openness to learning about all, not just to one's own culture. Iti, include everything. And Rabindranath brought Japanese artists to Kolkata. And this is pre-independence India. And they were influenced by the Indian traditional arts, as shown by the copy of the Ajanta paintings that this artist, R.I. Kanpo, had done. Going on to drawing in a Japanese version, on the left is goddess Saraswati as they saw it. And on the right, the goddess, probably Kali, as they imagined it. And it's so Japanese because the colors are so muted, because God knows, oopsies, because we all know if the Indians painted, they put every single color on the panel, it would be festooned as a rainbow. But it goes both ways, doesn't it? They also influence the Indian artists. Please notice the quintessential, I'm going to point now, Japanese mark on the work of one of my favorite Indian artist, Nandalal Bose. And in his work, this is an Indian work, look at the color palettes now, influenced by Japanese aesthetics, the quiet aesthetic, so redolent of the Japanese way of looking at things. And in here, again, one sees the Japanese maker's mark in some of Bose's work. I just love it. Again, iti. It doesn't take away from his Indianness. It's an embrace of the other because you're completely comfortable in being who you are. To let everything in, everything flows right through you. And Nandalal Bose is the illustrator for the document, which is the Indian Constitution. And if you don't know this, I'm very delighted to share with you, the Indian Constitution is a glorious piece of craftsmanship, both in philosophy and in art. It is the document that says the India that is Bharat. The aesthetics of it, these were the rough drawings that were done. It is the influence of the outer world reflected both materially and spiritually. It affects the components of the Constitution itself. And it befits the embracing, including idea, the idea that is India. And as a fitting end to this tradition, so these are some of the pages. It includes the Constitution draws out the history of India from the beginnings. This is showing from the Mahabharata drawing, Arjun being advised by the god Krishna, which is the central theme in the story of Mahabharata, which is known as the Bhagavad Gita, that aspect of the Mahabharata. The pages go on to show Gandhi. So it really does the whole gamut of the spectrum of India. Wonderfully beautiful looking document, beautiful in principle also. And I trust that those principles will be upheld always. So a fitting end to this presentation is again another poem by Tagore, and it is the hopes for the nation, because I have a history of two countries. I'm blessed to call two countries home. This home, to me, both America and India, and I do feel at home in the world. This is my hope for all nations across the board, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depths of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sands of dead habits, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, O my Father, let my country awake. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you like stories like this, next week, it's being hosted by the Women's Athletic Club. It's a continuation of the series called Influencer, which is the influence of the colonized on the empires that colonized them. We had done the Spanish Empire. We will be doing the Dutch Empire and her reign. I really hope I do your country justice. Mm-hmm. And IWA, I'm very grateful, is co-hosting with the University of Chicago, a series, a 5-part series. It's going to be on opera. It's called Opera and Inclusion. Here are the dates. It's really an inclusion in the sense because opera is the art of collaboration. And so it's going to include operas from Japan, from China, from India, because all these cultures have a very rich operatic tradition, which will be married to what we traditionally think as opera, which is the European opera. It's going to see opera from the points of view of someone who is new to opera, but has grown to love it. I have the zeal of a convert. I really love opera. Any curated mind just revels in opera because you can look at it from different ways. So it views operas over 5 months, one presentation per month, from the point of view of religion, love and lust, politics and war, architecture and botany, and movies. I hope you consider joining us. Those are the dates. And as always, I'm grateful for your time. I wish you joy. I'm going to stop sharing now.